Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus Sources Edition. This is the BBOC podcast that ties Big J journalism to big bets. My co-host, the award-winning, news-breaking, Action Network's own, and very tired Mr. Brett McMurphy. I am Action Network senior writer Collin Wilson, a guy that is not hedging a Western Kentucky ticket to win the Conference USA. Brett, I don't think you've slept. We're recording this on Monday night. I don't think you've slept in 48 hours. Is your phone constantly plugged in with all the coaching news and the bowl news and everything else going on?
Yeah, it is. It's been pretty hectic, and with COVID last year, not a lot of moves as far as a coaching carousel, but obviously they're making up for it this year. I know we had talked a couple of weeks ago. I said the over/under was 25.5. We may go over 25.5 while we're taping this podcast. We are currently at 22. Fresno State is now open. So with all the domino effects, we'll probably get over 30.
Kalen DeBoer, a fantastic job as Indiana's offensive coordinator. He actually brought life to that program from an offensive side of the ball with Tom Allen there as the head coach. Goes out to Fresno, and his first experience as a head coach was with a Fresno team that was locked out of their facilities the entire summer. And I believe got 2 weeks inside their own house to practice and get ready before their pandemic season started in 2020. They show up this year. They completely annihilate everybody's expectations in games against UCLA and Oregon. I think Washington, which is crazy, Brett, because you and I talk about it. I was just under the impression that the Chris Peterson web was going to be what drew in the next Washington coach. But instead, I think they made an extremely smart hire in going to get Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything I've heard about him, everything I know about him, very, very impressive, good offensive mind. Certainly, Jimmy Lake was the handpicked successor to Chris Peterson. That didn't work out for a number of reasons. The sources had told me a couple of weeks ago they were afraid if they stuck with Lake that they were going to drop back down to the Ty Willingham days. That's not what you want to hear if you're a Husky fan. So very nice hire by the Huskies. And, the Pac-12, obviously Lincoln Riley out the USC. If Mario Cristobal stays at Oregon, and who knows with the current openings or future openings, we'll have to see. Hopefully nothing happens before this podcast is put out. But as of Monday night, he's still the Oregon coach. But if Oregon can keep Cristobal, you've got a nice set of coaches there in the Pac-12. Much improved, from just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and now Jed Fish at Arizona has Sepncer Rattler in the transfer portal. Before I move on to other head coaches that have made positions, do we even have a clue where Sepncer Rattler is going to end up going? You have to think that this was premeditated, going from the leader in the clubhouse of the top of the Heisman odds in August to being benched. Nowhere on any NFL scouts list whatsoever. Where in the world is Sepncer Rattler going to go to? I mean, places like Nebraska need a quarterback. There's some ties to Arizona. Where's Sepncer Rattler going to go?
Yeah, I get a big board and spin it and see what it lands on. I really don't know. There's going to be a number of places obviously that would love to have him. I think. A bigger question is, does Caleb Williams remain at Oklahoma? With Lincoln Riley, gone to USC, does he follow him out to USC? Obviously, there's been a number of recruits that had committed to Oklahoma that have already decommitted in the last 24 hours. Those guys also, ironically, are California products. So, as far as Rattler, he'll have a number of places he can go. Certainly, it's going to be somewhere where he can get out there and be the starter. But yeah, Colin, I think it's too wide open to have any idea where he's going to go because there's so many kids in the transfer portal right now. But coaching, a source of mine was actually trying to get into the transfer portal today where you can see the list of all the players. And he said he couldn't get in it. He thinks it may be fried because so many people are in it to kind of see who's out there right now.
Yeah. So if those of you aren't familiar, I created a system called TARP, which is transfer activity and returning production. And that's where I pull all the rosters for a season. And not only do I do returning production for a team, but I take the stats from whatever team the transfer came from and I modify them, whatever the pass rush rate is going to be for that offense. And that's how I dictate what returning production actually is for a team full of transfers. An impossible job that I did with Tennessee this year. And I think it's going to be, again, a heavy transfer portal that's going to give me lots of nights awake before spring practice starts. And let's talk about Lincoln Riley for a second, because obviously you don't know the details about what's gone on since USC fired Clay Helton into the time that they hired Lincoln Riley. But it's interesting that there was really no news out there other than James Franklin kind of pounding his chest. And there was a little bit of rumors around that. And Lincoln Riley took a personal day, said that it was a family day that he had to go, and they're trailing Jets down to Baton Rouge. But obviously something was going on with USC. Something happened to Oklahoma this season from an offensive perspective. Sepncer Rattler didn't work out. Caleb Williams, after a while, didn't work out. Just too many momentum killer drives from a fumble standpoint, from a 10-yard penalty standpoint. And I know this is just your opinion, I know you have no inside knowledge on this. Do you think Lincoln Riley's had this job since the end of September?
The USC job?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. He actually addressed that today. He said basically after the game Saturday night that they reached out to him. He thought about it. They got on a Zoom call late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and then they made their pitch and he made the decision to leave. I think that there was some discussion with the LSU before Bedlam. I'm not sure how much, but I think USC AD Mike Bone, give him a lot of credit. You know, this job has been open for a long time. There's been a lot of names linked to this job. I think Lincoln Riley's the guy they wanted all along, and they kept that quiet. Kind of goes back to the phrase I think I mentioned to you the last week or the week before when talking about coaching searches. The people that talk don't know, and the people that know don't talk. So they kept that very quiet. I think Riley was the guy they wanted all along. And basically they were like some other folks in orange and black, they were rooting for the Cowboys to beat OU, because that meant Riley would be able to leave after Bedlam if Oklahoma would have beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's in the Big 12 title game. And I don't know if you can make a run at Riley before playing for a Big 12 title game and maybe possibly a college football playoff appearance. So yeah, Collin, I don't believe it that he's been in talks with them since September. I think possibly USC wanted him since then, but no, I believe Riley that this kind of came down at the last minute, and
right,
you know, now we can debate whether he's leaving because he doesn't want to compete in the SEC or he thinks USC is a better job or that sort of things.
Well, it's funny because I'm here in the state of Oklahoma. I live in the state of Oklahoma, and I've traveled all over the world before I became a writer at the Action Network. I used to travel all over the world, and I'm going to tell you right now, people bringing up taxes and how much he'll pay in taxes and quality in life and all that. There's a tornado siren that goes off at noon every day here. There are earthquakes just as many here as there are in California. It's 74 degrees and sunny every single day in Manhattan Beach. And here in Oklahoma, you can go from a 90-degree day to 30 degrees and snow and a tornado mixed in with that too. So I don't blame Lincoln Riley for getting out from a geographical perspective. And I actually don't blame him for leaving his position, because if you think about it, this is 2 years in a row he hasn't made the college football playoff. A whole bunch of college football playoff visits before that, could never get it done, could never win a national championship. And you have to wonder at some point when OU fans and anyone else was going to, I wouldn't say grow tired of Lincoln Riley. He still had a very good standing in the state, but 2 consecutive years of no college football playoff, and then never winning it before that with the kind of talent you've had from Kyler Murray to Baker Mayfield to Jalen Hurts. You have to wonder if Lincoln Riley kind of saw going to the SEC as my path to the college football playoff got a lot tougher. And if I go out to USC, I get to become the prime recruiter to rebuild a program that Clay Helton Clay Helton had recruited to levels of the MAC, to the worse than most of the G5 programs. So I think it's an extremely smart move by Lincoln Riley, and I wouldn't blame him for one bit for doing this.
I do too. And I think Lincoln's ultimately, he's going to be an NFL guy. And I think he realized that he can get to the NFL better, or have a better chance after going to USC and turning their program around, getting to college football playoff. And even with the expanded playoff, it's going to be easier to get to the college football playoff out of the Pac-12 than it would be in the SEC. And you're right, he goes from Oklahoma, where he's the top team in the Big 12, not only for the last 5 years, but for the last 50 years. And you were going to go to the SEC, where you were arguably, you may be the fourth best, fifth best, sixth best team in the conference. And I think what really illustrates that the most, or probably hit home to Riley, is you look at LSU 2 years ago. Ed Ogeron had arguably one of the greatest college football teams ever, at least the best offense ever, and winning a national championship. 2 years later, they had to pull off an upset to get to 6-6. At Oklahoma, a bad year is not 6-6. A bad year at Oklahoma is 9-3. That may not be the case in the SEC. And now you go out to the left coast, and it's going to be easier to recruit to USC than it is to Oklahoma. There's just a number of factors, but bottom line is he'll have some time to kind of build that up. But if he doesn't have USC winning Pac-12 championships, right off the bat, they're probably not going to be happy with it. But still, I think long term, it's a better move for him. And one last thing, that the thing that I thought is comical was hearing the OU press conference today, that we're doing this on Monday night, where the OU administrators talked about that they really didn't have much notice, if any notice, from Riley that he was going to USC, and that they kind of wish they had more notice. To which I tweeted, tired is OU not notifying the Big 12 before it left for the SEC. Wired is Lincoln Riley not notifying OU before taking the USC job. So, what goes around comes around, I guess.
That is one of the most amazing tweets ever, except you already outdid yourself by when Lincoln Riley got off the plane. You said that's his first offensive touchdown since the first half of Bedlam. So you really outdone yourself today in the land of Twitter. Where's OU going to go? I mean, I know we've thrown Heupel around. I know we've thrown, Stoops is going to hold the fort down there for the bowl until they get somebody in. Is it Mark Stoops? Is Baby Stoops going to come in? Who's going to be the head coach here?
Look, Joe Castiglione is their athletic director. He is, if he's not the best AD in the country, he's certainly in the top three. I would argue he's the best. And you look at his hires he's made at Oklahoma. He hired Bob Stoops, who was a defensive coordinator at Florida. Incredible success there. He was smart enough to put Riley in quickly when Stoops retired out of the blue. But also on the basketball side, he hired Lon Kruger, who was at UNLV. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. Castiglione told me this a couple of years ago. When he got fired, Jeff Capel, they had to find a new basketball coach. They wanted Lon Kruger. He had been pursuing Lon Kruger for a number of years, couldn't get him. They hired Jeff Capel. Kruger had just built a multi-million-dollar house in Vegas, literally in the last 6 months. Castiglione still pursued him and got Lon Kruger to go to Oklahoma, leave behind UNLV, leave behind the multi-million-dollar brand new house, and he got OU to the Final Four. So Castiglione will get a solid coach there. Who will that be? I don't know. Will that be somebody like Matt Campbell at Iowa State? I know there's been a lot of speculation about Brent Venables, former defense coordinator at Oklahoma. I do not have any inside information on this, but I don't think Castiglione will hire an assistant coach. I don't think he'll hire an assistant coach that has no head coaching experience, which Venables doesn't have. Mm-hmm. Barry Switzer, we all love Barry Switzer. He's pushing for Mike Leach, former Oklahoma offensive coordinator under Bob Stoops. Knowing Castiglione's personality, I don't think he wants somebody like Leach who can, as much as we love Mike Leach sound bites, I don't think he wants that type of coach at Oklahoma. I also would be surprised if he gives Lane Kiffin serious consideration for a lot of the same reasons. Kiffin sometimes makes more headlines off the field than he does on the field. So I think he's going to get somebody, whether it's a Matt Campbell. Does he make a run at somebody in the NFL like a Matt Rule and maybe try to get him back to the college ranks? You know, the report about Cliff Kingsbury being a target of that's no, that's not it. That's basically an agent saying, hey, can you tweet this? And then somebody tweeting it, and that's out there. Mark Stoops would be fascinating. I think he's done an incredible job at Kentucky. I thought that he would have a shot at LSU, although as we're taping this right now, there's reports that Brian Kelly may be being pursued by LSU. I don't know. It would be I don't know if weird's the right word, but it would be very unique for Oklahoma to hire Mark Stoops, obviously with his brother having already been there. And the comparison between Bob Stoops and Mark Stoops. Mike Stoops is also on the staff as an assistant coach. I mean, you literally have every Stoops relative on Oklahoma staff if that happens. So I don't necessarily know if they'll go with Mark Stoops. So I guess, Collin, this is a long-winded response to, I don't have any clue what they're ultimately going to do, but I do think that Joe Castiglione will end up with a great hire because based on his track record, that's what he's done every single time.
0% chance they go after Mike Gundy?
0.0% chance they go after Mike Gundy.
Just had to ask. See, I mean,
you know what? No, you know what would be funny? And obviously I'm an Oklahoma State grad, and I thought the entire 60 minutes of the OU game that Oklahoma State was going to lose that game. Actually, after the game went final, I was waiting for them to cut in and say, wait, there's a penalty on the play, time for one more untimed down. Somehow, some way that would not end up the way it did. If somehow Oklahoma State can win Baylor, and by no means am I saying that's a certainty. In fact, we may still be partying after winning Bedlam, and hopefully we don't come out flat. But how ironic would it be if Oklahoma State did get to the playoff, and if Oklahoma State won a semifinal game where OU has been multiple times, Lincoln Riley never won a playoff game, and then Oklahoma State and Gundy's able to win a semifinal game. That would be some poetic justice there. But hey, the Pokes got to get by Baylor first. So I guess I need to stop dreaming and get back to reality.
The Pokes have a great chance at making the college football playoff. You and I said that a month ago when we told everybody to take 80-1. And as I'm looking at it right now, they'd be a pick against Cincinnati. They'd be a 5-point underdog to Michigan in a semifinal. You just kind of want to avoid that Georgia train.
Avoid Georgia, right?
Yeah, but that Pokes, that defense is easily, I said it, with confidence last week on the show, that is easily the second best defense in the nation. And the difference is they've actually had competent offenses throw downfield on them. Georgia has not really had a test downfield. So I think the Cowboys still have some more damage to do. We'll see how that works out this weekend. But, I don't know, switching from OU and who's going to fill that job, it's so quiet on the LSU front. I can't even believe that a coach hasn't been named. And that makes me think that coach may still be coaching. And that makes me think maybe that coach is Dave Aranda. I have no clue who's going to be at LSU. We got Mel Tucker re-signing. We've got James Franklin signing. Lincoln Riley's out now with the whole tracking the planes, and then half the LSU team on Twitter following Lincoln Riley. Do you think that it's a coach that is still coaching in conference championship games right now?
No, well, here's the deal. LSU, I mean, they wanted Scott Woodward, like Joe Castiglione, has made some tremendous hires. He hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. When Scott Woodward was AD at Washington, he hired Chris Peterson. So he has swung for the fences, and he's done very, very well as an athletic director. I think a number of people, and you can look around the country at all the people that got raises, most notably Mel Tucker, you can see the coaches that they targeted. As we're recording this right now, Brian Kelly's name has been linked to LSU. It's funny. I was texting with somebody earlier today, and they mentioned that, Brian Kelly's burned out at Notre Dame, and, look for him to LSU. And it's a source that I trust very much, but I thought this guy was just kind of, venting. He wasn't really providing me any info. So I never really pursued it because I didn't think he was providing me actual news. It was more kind of just like a back and forth, what's going on. So then sure enough, a couple hours later, there's reports out there where now Brian Kelly is being targeted by LSU. So that's kind of one part of the spectrum when I'm dealing with people on different stories. Another one is where I get my emails on my Twitter account. Anyone can email me. It's brettmcmurphy@gmail.com if you want to email me. But I got an email, and I get these randomly, and it's always, I can tell it's always from somebody who thinks that I will just report any news that someone emails me.
Yep.
And it says, Brett, I'm close with Scott Woodward, the LSU AD. I work in his office. I know that they are working on a deal with Tom Allen. Everything is hush hush, and they want to wait until after the bowl game to announce to keep the boosters quiet. Just thought you should know. So, of course, I should run with that. I should print that. LSU's going after a coach that just went 2-10. Let's go hire Tom Allen,
defensive coordinator.
And it's I like where he goes, I'm close with Scott Woodward, parenthesis, I work in his office. I'm like, okay, so obviously the guy's name's on the email. So I look just for giggles. And of course, there's no one by that name that works, that works at LSU with that name. So it's just comical. I can tell, there are some folks out there from certain fan bases that maybe are not a fan of me because of stuff that I've found out about their schools or their coaches or whatever, that, by the way, were factual, but still, that's fine. But they will randomly send me this stuff that's so crazy off the board, just thinking I will automatically report this without even checking it out. So anyway, I had legit information on Brian Kelly and screwed up and didn't pursue it. And then I had some bogus information on Tom Allen, unless LSU announces Tom Allen as the next coach, and then I'll really look bad.
This wouldn't be the first time that a head coach has gotten burned out at Notre Dame. It's such an impossible job, from academics to the kind of player that you can recruit to trying to compete with the SEC. It feels like an impossible job in today's landscape to win a national championship there, as to where in LSU, you're essentially growing blue chips in your backyard. And I would not be surprised at all. But I don't know. I think an LSU fan, I know Woodward isn't there to make the LSU fan base happy. He's there to win a national championship. I just find it quite interesting if he went the Aranda route, because Dave Aranda is still coaching for this Big 12 championship game. But that came in a combination of getting Joe Brady to leave the Carolina Panthers and be the offensive coordinator for LSU. It seems like that would be a win-win for just about everybody, but we'll see how this the rest of this news plays out. And probably by the time the podcast is released, this all could be moot. So
well, I do know it real quick, Colin, as far as Dave Aranda, sources have told me that they are working to restructure his deal at Baylor. He has, and this was a few days ago, told Baylor people there that, he plans on remaining there. Now, things can change,
That's what Matt Rule said.
That's what Matt Rule said. So they come around and, Scott Woodward is even, offers double what he did previously, then maybe he gets him to change his mind. Because again, LSU made one of the earliest decisions to get rid of their coach. And now here we are, 22 coaching changes later, and LSU job's still open. USC, which everyone thought had whiffed multiple times, makes a home run hire, and now the OU job is open. So yeah, LSU's under a lot of pressure. So maybe Dave Aranda or some of these coaches who have recommitted to these schools, I'm not saying Mel Tucker or anybody that has a new deal, but some of these guys that have given verbal commitments that, hey, I'm good, I'm staying here, might have a change of mind if LSU circles back and basically does a Godfather, make me an offer I can't refuse.
Is LSU a job where you need to know the recruiting territory? And I ask that because of Brian Harsin having no ties to the South whatsoever, Auburn going and plucking him, paying him over $5 million just because they wanted a change. And I think there may be some boosters regretting that right now. And then I look at a coach like Matt Campbell, I look at Luke Fickell, and they have such strong ties to the Midwest, to the Ohio, Indiana, Michigan region, they wouldn't really be a fit with LSU. But I said the same thing about Kalen DeBoer, who is from the same area, and then eventually ended up out at Fresno. And 2 years later, now he's the head coach at Washington. Is Matt Campbell and Luke Fickell is just not a good fit for LSU? Do you feel like you have to know the territory and you have to know the brand?
I think so a little bit, but I think what's unique about LSU is the amount of players, not only in the state of Louisiana, obviously you're next to Texas, you can recruit Florida, you're playing in the SEC, you're playing in the nation's best conference, but also LSU can say something that I don't know if any other school can say. And basically the last 3 coaches have won national championships there. Now, 2 of those coaches got fired too, but it just shows the amount of talent that you can have at that school. And Collin, all you have to, I know you're a big follower of the NFL. You look at all these NFL rosters, and LSU's, year after year in the top 2 or 3 as far as producing NFL talent. So no, I think a guy doesn't necessarily have to be an LSU guy to go in there. Nick Saban's not an LSU guy. He went in there, won a national championship. So I think anybody could step in there, and, you're obviously going to hire your staff around you that's familiar with the state and with the area or whatever, if you're not a quote Southern guy. But I think, I'm not going to say anybody can roll in there and do that, but I don't think it's a requirement. You need to be from the South or a Southern guy to come in and be successful at LSU.
So confirm, let's switch over to confirm bowl games. You placed my Razorbacks. You've ruined my vacation from sending me from Duke's Mayo Bowl to the Music City Bowl. There's no way my family wants to go to Nashville. You will not put us in a Florida Bowl, but so far we do have a couple of confirmed spots. We have East Carolina going into the Military Bowl. We also have Memphis going to the Hawaii Bowl, which is fantastic because I love freshman quarterbacks that can throw for 1,000 yards in a game, playing on my Christmas Eve TV screen while I pour a little bit of scotch. But the only head-to-head matchup we have right now is one of the very first bowls, the Bahamas Bowl, is Middle Tennessee and Toledo. I think the biggest question on bowl people's minds is Alabama going to the Sugar Bowl if they lose to Georgia this weekend, or is it Ole Miss's bowl?
Yeah, so Collin, basically it's based on, it'll be based on the final rankings on Sunday. From last week, Alabama was at number 3, Ole Miss was at number 2. Alabama's going to stay at number 3 in Tuesday rankings, or they'll move up to number 2, depending on if Michigan jumps Alabama. So I think if Alabama loses to Georgia, I don't see Alabama dropping below Ole Miss because, again, both schools will have 2 losses. Alabama will have won its division. Alabama won the head-to-head against Ole Miss. So, yeah, Collin, that would put Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss, though, would likely still be high enough ranked. They don't play this week, obviously. So they would get one of the at-large bids, meaning they would either go to the Fiesta Bowl or the Peach Bowl.
Is Baylor or Oklahoma going to be in the Sugar Bowl? If Baylor wins the Big 12 championship, I think they're automatically tied into that game. But if they lose that game, is OU the next man up while Oklahoma State goes to the college football playoff?
It's the same situation. So if Oklahoma State beats Baylor, who would be the higher ranked team between Baylor and Oklahoma? Oklahoma was number 10 last week. They're certainly going to drop after losing to Oklahoma State. Again, Baylor won the head-to-head with Oklahoma. I think if Baylor loses to Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game, Baylor would not drop below Oklahoma, a team they beat head-to-head. So Baylor would then go to the Sugar Bowl because Oklahoma State was in the playoff. If Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 title game but does not get into the playoff, Oklahoma State would go to the Sugar Bowl, and then Baylor would probably be ranked high enough to get an at-large bid in either the Peach or the Fiesta Bowl.
So with a Michigan Big Ten championship, I'm sure it's the same rules, and we can probably assume that Ohio State's going out to the Rose Bowl.
Yes, absolutely. Because as long as Michigan wins, Ohio State will be in the Rose Bowl. Now, if Michigan loses, I mean, there's a number of scenarios that would happen. There's a possibility. What does the committee do with Michigan and Ohio State? you've got neither of them would be Big Ten champs. I don't think Iowa's not going to get up into the top four. I know, we had one of our calls earlier today, and one of our dedicated Action Network employees was trying to figure out a way that Iowa could get up into the top four. They're at number 16 right now. A&M lost in front of them. Oklahoma lost in front of them. I think the highest Iowa could get to be 14 going into this week. Beating number 2 Michigan, Iowa is not going to jump from 14 to number 4. There's just too many bodies to climb over. But if Michigan wins the Big Ten, Ohio State goes to the Rose Bowl as the highest rated Big Ten team, not in the playoff.
Yeah, you wouldn't even let me get it out earlier today in our company meeting where I said, well, what if
I shut that down, man?
What if every single team takes a 50 burger, right? Like what if Bama, Michigan, everybody takes a 50 burger? Can Iowa get up there in that top 4? But I said astronomical odds. So that would be, it would be pretty crazy for them to even get close to sniff the top 10 would be good for Iowa. And what a choke job by Wisconsin. What happened to you guys against Minnesota? That's more PJ Fleck magic for you.
I mean, that Wisconsin could have been in the running for a New Year's Six game if they would have won that game, and then, were competitive in the Big Ten title game. And now they shuffle down. And by the way, Collin, I've been making a lot of calls about the bowl stuff. I have my updated projections on Twitter at Brett_McMurphy. Hopefully I'll have another updated projection later in the week, but the ones that are out there now are up to date as of Monday night, with Memphis going to Hawaii. And as far as your beloved Razorbacks, here's the deal. If Georgia beats Alabama, I expect Alabama to the Sugar. Ole Miss will get either the Fiesta or the Peach. I'm projecting the Peach. Against, by the way, this will be one of the best games, and you got to take the over, right? Ole Miss versus Pitt in the Peach Bowl. You got to love that, right?
That pace, that top.
Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Hopefully they play.
Yeah.
they don't opt out. But anyway, as far as your Razorbacks, so I think Kentucky slides in to the Citrus Bowl as the top SEC team after that group. Then I've been told that basically it's going to be a battle royale between Tennessee, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. As far as of those 3 teams, they all want to go to Florida. So they can either come here in Tampa, where I'm at, play in the Outback Bowl, or go to the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. So 2 of those teams are going to get Florida Bowls, and then one of them is probably going to end up in Nashville. So there's a lot of discussion now on how that would break down. So even though currently I have Arkansas in the Music City Bowl, there is a lot of, I don't know if say momentum, but there is a lot of people in the Razorbacks corner that try to get them to Florida, whether it's the Outback Bowl in Tampa or the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. I don't think anything will be decided until Sunday, until we see how the SEC title game plays out. But just, I'm just saying, there is a chance. You've got a chance. Even though I've got you guys in the Music City right now, there is a possibility you could end up in Florida. So don't make those, you would probably drive to Nashville anyway. But don't make those travel plans to Nashville just yet. You may have to get a plane ticket for Florida.
I almost vomited when I saw a bowl matchup with Minnesota. That would be the most boring way to spend my December 30th. But considering my wife and all of my in-laws are from Iowa, I would kill for that Citrus Bowl, Arkansas, Iowa. There's a lot of people that leave the state of Iowa and retire in the state of Arkansas. So that would be a heck of a bowl that would sell out in 5 minutes. But no, you can check out Brett's bowl projections. Clemson, Texas A&M in the Gator Bowl, Wisconsin, Tennessee in the Outback. And like Brett said, these are all going to shuffle here. And the college football playoff final rankings on Sunday is going to determine a lot of where everybody goes. And speaking of that, we are going to record our podcast late on Sunday and sort of we usually would do a recap episode, but we're going to do it after the college football playoff has been announced, after the New Year's Six has been announced. And then when Brett's phone is just blown up like crazy to fill out the rest of the bowls, we're going to do our podcast and have a live projection. Like the second the games are announced, we'll have our live projection, our live total. And then we're going to start talking about which head coach is in this, which isn't, which players are in this, who's going to sit, who's going to play. So definitely a big podcast coming up at the end of the week. Brett, let's switch over to conference championship games. I think a lot of people, I've already had, I think 4 or 5 Twitter DMs and mentions today about hedging some of these futures tickets. And I know that you're included with me on this Western Kentucky train, but for me, I had a Western Kentucky 14-1. I've got a Georgia plus 275 to win the SEC. I've got a couple of other teams on the board, a little bit of Utah to win the Pac-12 after winning the South. How do you feel about any of the tickets that you have going into this weekend? Are you in pure hedge mode? And then I'll kind of talk about each one, about how I think I'm going to either stay in or get out of some of mine.
I don't feel very good about my Oregon to win the national title ticket. I think that's a long shot. I don't know if I can cash that out early. I've got, like you, Western Kentucky to win Conference USA. After seeing what they did against Marshall, I'm just gonna stick with it, let it go, see what happens. I have a Bryce Young Heisman out there that was plus, I think, 260. Kind of what we called this 2 months ago. And when everyone talked about Matt Corral, when everyone talked about Kenneth Walker, when everybody talked about CJ Stroud, when people were even trying to get Caleb Williams in the mix, what did we say every time? It's a team award. It's going to go to the best player, although technically Bryce Young's not the best player at Alabama. You can make a case for a number of folks on their defense.
Will Anderson, yeah.
But it's an offensive quarterback award. And now CJ Stroud's not playing. And I remember texting you this last weekend that CJ Stroud's not playing on Saturday. So he's out of sight, out of mind. Bryce Young will be playing. Everyone is going to be watching that game. Certainly everyone that votes for the Heisman. If Bryce Young does very well against arguably the greatest team on the planet as far as college football, then he's only going to help his Heisman case. Even if Alabama loses that game, I think Bryce Young, and now he's in the favorite mode. What is he, minus 200 now?
Yeah, minus 200.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say there's any value on that, but certainly I think I think Bryce Young is the choice for the Heisman. I know you're excited. I know Stucky's excited for you guys to have your first ever Heisman vote. As a reminder, we can't reveal who we're going to vote for, but we can certainly reveal our votes after the award is given out. But it's kind of played its way out like I thought it would. If Alabama got to the SEC title game, I thought Bryce Young would win it. And I'm not saying he shouldn't win it or he should win it. I'm just basing this on how this award has been given out in past years. And we'll have to see if that's what happens.
Yeah, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud have been the top two the entire time. We got a lot of value on CJ Stroud about 2 months ago after Ohio State took that loss. That value never presented itself for Bryce Young. He never dipped below. I don't think he was ever outside 5-1, maybe in the preseason. But since the game started, everyone could see just how accurate and how surgical this freshman kid can be with the Alabama offense. And it's going to be pretty interesting next year when they have a whole boatload of weapons back, some that are injured right now. And, one of these, and I'm still a little bit shocked that I'm a Heisman voter now. My Heisman vote is always going to be based on who has the better numbers and who is the better leader for their team. And right now, I'll just say one of them between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, one of them is ahead of the other when it comes to raw stats. And when you take their strength of schedules into play, it even makes it more clear about who should win this Heisman. Back on the Western Kentucky, you've got them in the Boca Raton Bowl against Liberty. That would be excellent. Absolutely a pure joy to watch. Is the Conference USA champ go to Boca Raton, or do they go to another, or is there a tie into another bowl?
Actually, it's different for each conference. Conference USA is unique in that it lets the champion of the league kind of give their preference on what bowl they want to go to. So it's not like, for instance, the Mountain West champion will automatically go to the Los Angeles Bowl. The Sun Belt champion, more often than not, will go automatically to the New Orleans Bowl. And so Conference USA is unique in that they actually let the team kind of give their preference. So from what I understand, the Hilltoppers would like a trip to sunny Florida, don't we all? Mm-hmm. And would want to be in the Boca Raton Bowl. Who they would play, that's, unknown. I've matched them up with, I think I have them with Liberty. I had them against Central Michigan last week. It's impossible to tell who they're going to play because so many of these bowls have multiple conferences linked to it. But if they win, I think they would go there. If UTSA wins, I'm not sure where they would prefer. I know that if there was hope, if their undefeated season is gone by the wayside now, but if UTSA would have ran the table and been 13-0, I know there was a push to try to put them in the Independence Bowl against BYU, because then you would have had two ranked teams playing in the Independence Bowl. BYU is, this year at least, is contractually obligated to play in the Independence Bowl unless they make one of the New Year's Six games. BYU is so close to getting into a New Year's Six game, but I don't think they're going to make it. So they'll be in Shreveport against, I'm projecting this week, it's a regional matchup. Please, bowl gods, make it happen. BYU versus LSU.
Well, that would be absolutely fantastic. Maybe Kalani Sitake can interview for the LSU job there. But one last note on the bowls, Brett. You and I talked about this earlier today. We had an additional team qualify more than there was spots. So that means somebody that's 6-6 is going to get left out. Can you review again which teams are possibly on the table for not making a bowl season?
Yeah. So basically, the easiest way to look at it is every team with 7 or more wins is guaranteed a bowl spot. And then once you fill in all of those bowl games, a 6-6 team that's not in the Power 5 league will not go to a bowl game. So 6-6 LSU will find a bowl home. They will not get left out. So basically you're looking at Ball State or Miami, Ohio out of the MAC. You're looking at Wyoming in the Mountain West. You're looking at possibly ODU or North Texas in Conference USA. You're looking at Tulsa in the American. Out of that group, one of those teams will not go to a bowl game. I spent a significant amount of time on the phone today trying to figure out which team that would be. The short answer is it's impossible to predict. There's no rhyme or reason how this decision is made. It's basically as the bowls get filled up, once you get down there towards the end and a bowl needs to fill a spot, it's up to the bowl to determine, whether I'll just hypothetically pick two teams out of the air, Tulsa or North Texas. What team does that bowl want if they're the last two teams available? And whichever team that bowl picks, the other team does not go to a bowl. It's unfortunate. Some people say we have too many bowls. Other people say we should just let everybody play in a bowl game. I've gone back and forth on this. It's an exhibition. Why not have, who's against more college football? Just let everybody play a bowl game. Let's see New Mexico State battle it out with UMass, or they already played that game. New Mexico State, Kansas, or something in a bowl game. I don't know.
Hey, Kansas is good. We can't we can't throw them under the bus anymore.
Yeah, my bad. UConn.
Yeah. Well, I would love to have more bowl games. So it'll be interesting to see who sits at home. Hopefully it's not North Texas. They've been money makers for weeks. ODU, another team led by defense, is just.
I mean, look at real quick, ODU. They didn't play last year because of COVID. They were one of the few teams that did not play. They start out this year 1-6. They've won the 5 consecutive games to get to 500. get to 6 wins. I hope they get picked. I'm supposed to be neutral. I am neutral, whether people believe that or not, but I am 100% hoping ODU gets into a bowl game because of everything they've gone to and the way they've turned it around there for the Monarchs.
I thought you were the biggest Ohio State fan in the world. I didn't know that you were.
ODU is my favorite team. Ohio State's second.
All right. So pivoting from bowl season, now that we got clear about how a team that finished 6-6 could miss out on bowl, one of them will miss out on bowl season. I think we can do a real quick segment on the Heisman Handicap. We already talked about it before. The Bryce Young minus 200 at the books right now. CJ Stroud not playing this weekend. He's sitting around plus 450. And then there's just a litany of double-digit guys from Kenny Pickett, Kenneth Walker, Matt Corral. No chances whatsoever. What has to happen this weekend for CJ Stroud to win?
I think Bryce Young needs to throw 3 interceptions, maybe a pick 6, and just have a 10 for 30, 100-yard game, where it's not necessarily Georgia's defense, but just bad throws by him. But he needs the worst game of his life for CJ Stroud, I think, to have a chance. And I don't think that'll happen, but I think that's because the voters, what have you done for me lately? And, I think it would take just a total disaster for Bryce Young to lose the hold he has on the award to CJ Stroud, since, like we mentioned, CJ's not playing this week. That really, obviously it killed Ohio State's Big Ten title hopes.
Right.
They're long shot to get in the playoff, but it sealed CJ's Heisman hopes as well. Although I expect him to be in New York. I know you've got a substantial ticket on Desmond Ridder to get to New York. You need him to have a monster game against Houston, and I think he's got a shot. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Collin, but next Friday, the Heisman will announce the 4 finalists in New York. There's only 4. There's not 3. There's not 7, but there's 4. So basically, you need Desmond Ridder to finish in the top 4. Are you confident about that?
I need another 6 touchdown game. I don't care if he's on receiving a touchdown. I don't care if he's running a touchdown. I just think the total number of touchdowns, he's going to have to get to 6 against Houston for me to have any shot. I mean, there was a lot going on Saturday this weekend after, Ohio State got knocked out, and then Bryce Young, we didn't know what was going on with Auburn. I started getting a flood of texts from the guys that run tickets for me in Las Vegas, from friends that live in Jersey, about Aiden Hutchinson. And I was going back at them saying, what about Jordan Davis? I mean, if we're going to talk about defensive players here. And so all that was kind of, on the inside, as a guy that's got a nickel down on 30-1 odds on Desmond Ridder to make it to New York. That's all I need. I don't need him to win it. I just need him to make it to New York. I'm thinking, how many of these third place votes are going to go towards defensive players? So it's kind of an interesting dynamic right now. I think Desmond Ridder is going to have at least a 6 TD day, no matter if it's passing, running, receiving. We're going to need something big out of Ridder. What's the chances that Aiden Hutchinson and Jordan Davis, are they going to draw some third place votes, you think?
Yeah, I think they will, but I don't think they'll get enough to get to New York. And I think it's, there's a ton of people that vote for the Heisman. And I think that a majority of them, I don't know how to say this. I don't think they look enough at defensive players, I'll just put it that way, to strongly consider them for the Heisman or to consider them for the Heisman. I saw somebody had a statistical comparison of Will Anderson and some of the other best defensive players in past years, and he's like dwarfed all those numbers. Should Will Anderson go to New York? Absolutely. Is Will Anderson the best player at Alabama? I say probably, but still, I think, Bryce Young will end up winning it. So it's an offensive award. It's just, that's just how it's always been. And as I'm talking to you right now, I'm looking at Twitter, and I know a friend of yours that you regard in a very high manner. It's reported that Mike Bobo is out as offensive coordinator at Auburn. So I say that sarcastically. So yeah, how about that one?
That's a little shocking. After firing the wide receivers coach a couple weeks in, and I didn't really think that the offense. You lost Bo Nix. I thought Mike Bobo did a fine job. Anyways, I would be more inclined to figure out why Bill O'Brien kept throwing to Roger McCreary for Auburn. As far as the Heisman segment goes, it is interesting about the defensive players, but in my opinion, Brett, after the season that Nana Sue put up and Chase Young put up, if they can't win the Heisman, it's probably never going to happen. I don't know if they, we could talk about this another time. If they expand the voting to go past 3, and that way you can put defensive players in at 3, 4, 5, and then collect more votes that way. It's just an entire process where it's tough as a defensive player. So look for Bryce Young, 3 interceptions, and a pretty horrible game from a throwing perspective to get himself out of the Heisman. Look for Desmond Ridder to put up. I think he's got to put up at least 6 just to get a nice little trip to New York. And that's how the Heisman should go. Let's switch over to our last segment, Brett. Let's do the playoff payoff. So, Brett, tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, there will be a college football playoff ranking piece on Action Network that I wrote up today. And essentially, I've done this every week, that has looked for value in teams before the rankings come out. Because, we've done this a number of weeks in a row. There was a Michigan 60-1 out there that needed to be hit before they moved up. There was a Oklahoma State 80-1 out there. I hit both of those myself. Whether they're going to hold up, I'm not going to hedge on them this weekend, but I'll certainly hedge on them once we get to the semifinals. I think we're pretty set. For me, the bracket is Georgia. No matter what, Georgia could lose by 50 this weekend. They're going to get in. Michigan wins, they're in. Oklahoma State wins, they're in. That's where it's easy. I think the messy part is Cincinnati is going to get in unless Alabama beats Georgia and Michigan and Oklahoma State win their conference championships, correct?
I would think so. And I know I'm an Oklahoma State alum. I've said that. I'll repeat it. With Michigan, in that scenario, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan are locked in. The 4th spot is between 13-0 Cincinnati and 12-1 Oklahoma State. And I can't tell you how the committee would go. I would think, based on all of the information that they're supposed to use, strength of schedule, quality wins, etc., Oklahoma State will have had 3 wins against top 15 ranked opponents. Cincinnati will have 1. That was Notre Dame. Oklahoma State would have 10 wins against Power 5 opponents. Cincinnati would have 2. Oklahoma State would have more wins against teams with winning records than Cincinnati would have. Those are all facts, okay? But there's the human element in it. And does Cincinnati benefit from the fact that no Group of 5 team has ever made it? And we've never put them in, so let's put them in this year. I can't predict that. But in your scenario with Alabama and Michigan winning, it comes down to Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. I don't know which way they would go. I think I'm actually projecting, to tell you how I think, based on the numbers, I think Oklahoma State, if all the favorites win, Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State, I think Oklahoma State will jump Cincinnati and be a 3 seed. Cincinnati will be a 4. So in your scenario where Alabama beats Georgia, I think Oklahoma State would be 4, Cincinnati would be 5. But again, that's me. I'm not on the committee, but that will be fascinating TV viewing if Alabama beats Georgia, to see what happens with Oklahoma State and Cincinnati.
Yeah, the committee has cited strength of record quite often. And Cincinnati right now sits at number 4 and Oklahoma State sits at number 5. Strength of schedule, Cincinnati's at 96th and Oklahoma State is at 38. And I don't think you're going to ding Oklahoma State for losing by 3 points at Iowa State. I mean, that's just not one of those Ohio State getting blown out by Purdue or Ohio State getting blown out at Iowa. It's just not one of those moments. I hate to call it a quality loss, but it is a quality loss. I mean, there's no shame in losing in Ames by 3 points. So it should be interesting, but strength of record is the one that they seem to cite all the time. And these two teams are 4-5. And I don't know if that flips after Cincinnati plays Houston and Oklahoma State plays Baylor, but that's going to be the interesting thing. After that, Brett, I don't believe, I know in my write-up I said Alabama losing the SEC championship, they do not have a path to hop over Cincinnati if Cincinnati wins the AAC.
But here, Collin, real quick, I think what's going to be what people need to look at Tuesday night for the rankings is if Alabama is number 2 or number 3. I think if Alabama's at number 2 ahead of Michigan, I think they can lose a close game to Georgia and still have a shot. I really do. If Alabama, and this is what I think, again, I preface this. This is what I think how the committee will vote. If Alabama comes in at number 3 and then loses to Georgia, then I don't think they can stay in the top 4.
Right. Well, it should be interesting how the committee slots them on Tuesday night. Right now, Michigan is number 2 in strength of record, and Alabama is number 3 in strength of record. So does Alabama hold tight at 3 and Michigan slides right into that number 2 will be very telling to see how far Alabama may slide if they lose to Georgia. So I also wrote in there, what does Notre Dame have to do to get in? I think we kind of talked about how this would be one of the worst resumes in college football playoff history, including Michigan State a number of years ago when college football playoffs started. I think we have to have Alabama get pounded into the ground. I think we have to have Oklahoma State lose. I think we have to have Michigan lose, but there is a really small path for Notre Dame. True or false?
I don't see how they can get in.
Michigan,
I don't know.
If Michigan and Oklahoma State lose, we don't have many one-loss teams left.
Notre Dame, depending on if Wisconsin stays in the top 25, I'm guessing they will. They were at 14 last week. Notre Dame will have exactly one more win against a ranked opponent than you and I do. I don't know if that's enough. I think a 2-loss team could get in over 11-1 Notre Dame, simply because their schedule maybe before the season looked very good. It doesn't, who's their second best win after Wisconsin is Purdue. And then everybody else is at 6-6 or below. Toledo won 7 games. Yeah, Collin, I don't know. I don't think that's a slam dunk just because they have 1 loss and where they're at right now. I think the 2-loss teams may either stay ahead of them or somehow jump them.
Irish fans, Brett is throwing cold water on your dreams of all the 1-loss teams taking a big loss this weekend and possibly slipping in, suggesting that maybe 2-loss Ole Miss, Ohio State, or Michigan State may jump ahead of Notre Dame here this weekend. We'll have to see. We'll have to see where the rankings are after tomorrow night. But at least you and I can both agree there's a higher percentage chance of Notre Dame getting in than Iowa, correct?
Yes. You got it.
All right. That will
and more breaking news before we go off the air. As we're just ending the podcast now, TCU officially announces what we reported last week, I think. Sonny Dykes is the new coach with the Horned Frogs.
That is a great hire. It's a great hire. Sonny Dykes did an amazing job at SMU, especially in the post Chad Morris era. I don't know who's having worst post eras, Chad Morris or Bobby Petrino, but Sonny Dykes did a great job there. I was a little surprised Sonny Cumbie's going to stay on as offensive coordinator. I'm surprised he's not getting a head coaching position. And SMU's already named their coach, Arkansas native from Fort Smith, Rhett Lashley, who is, formerly Gus Malzahn's quarterback, I believe. Rhett Lashley from the state of Arkansas, who has made his way in the college ranks as one of the best offensive coordinators. I thought it was a great hire at Miami. SMU is going to be on fire next year with that staff that they have built there. So that's going to do it for Big Bets on Campus sources. Before Brett breaks any more, Mike Bobo, Sonny Dykes, all this, there is so much information. By the time we cut this podcast, I'm sure the LSU job will be filled, or maybe Lane Kiffin will take a picture of another state license where he can joke around where he's going to go. But this has been Big Bets on Campus Sources edition. Tomorrow afternoon, you can hear our group of 5 experts, Mike Iannello and Mike Calabrese, on our G5 deep dive episode. And late Thursday night, Stuckey and I will be back for week 14 conference championship weekend with our favorite picks. If you got a ticket from any of the futures we put out in the summer, we're going to talk about how to hedge them, how to play them. And if we're going to hedge them, Brett's got to get back to breaking news and never sleeping. And I'm going to go back to looking at the San Diego State total and maybe hit an over against Utah State this weekend. So thanks for joining me, Brett, and we'll see you guys at the window.